everybody, Linda Pineacre here. Tonight's live event starts now. It's 6 ways to receive intuitive messages. You may ask questions below or offer ideas for future live events. I'll be talking about the various ways you receive intuitive messages, what you can do to become more able to receive intuitive messages, and how to ensure that the messages are accurate. First of all, I want to say that everybody receives intuitive messages. Some of us are just more aware of it than others. Sometimes it just feels like it's your own thought. There's such a thin line between using your intuition and receiving intuitive messages. And I'm sure there's a lot of times you think to yourself, gee, was that a message? And I don't think there's ever been anybody who hasn't at least once got a message that they should take a jacket or an umbrella or a sweater, and then they didn't do that and regretted it. I'm sure you can relate to that. We use our intuition to channel our spirit guides, our loved ones in spirit, and our higher self. And first of all, it's really kind of strange because it's just you know things, but you may not know where it came from. And like I said, it's such a thin line between your thoughts and intuitive message that you may be thinking that you're just imagining it and not take it that seriously. We use all of our senses when we're using our intuition. And for some of us, one or two might be more developed than others. The sense that most people are familiar with is clairvoyance, and that's your vision. And so you receive visions or detailed images or pictures in your mind. And in the beginning, those can be really fleeting. Like they're so fleeting that you might even think you imagined them. And I know for myself, I never even realized that I was receiving intuitive messages many, many years ago, like over 15 years ago when I first started looking into this more seriously. I was in a class, and one of the guys said that they'd had a guest speaker, and the guest speaker had told them that images are really fleeting. And oh wow, and then all of a sudden I realized I've been receiving messages with images for quite a while and hadn't even realized those were messages. For some reason, I thought they would just hang out there in your mind and you'd be able to take a look at them. And certainly as you get more practice and get more comfortable, over time it does get so that the messages will stay, the image will stay long enough that you can sort of examine it and get more details. But until that happens, you can only share with people or be aware of whatever you remember from that fleeting image. So it's nice when they do start to hang out a little more. The other sense that we use is our hearing. And the term for that is clairaudience. And so you might be able to hear sounds or words and receive messages that way. And, you know, a lot of people get like ringing in the ears, and that's a sound just to get your attention so you'll notice that there's a message. The other sense that I think almost everybody uses, I actually think that this is the most common one because almost all of us have been intuitive or we've been healers in past lives, and that is the sense of clairsentience. And what that means is that you're sensitive to feelings, emotions, and energy. And so you'd receive messages in the sacral chakra and the solar plexus area. And I guess an example I give of that is you might walk into a room and you can tell when you can cut the air with a knife. Or you might meet somebody and you know what mood they're in without them having to say or do anything. And clairsentience is the sense that us medical intuitives use. It allows us to scan bodies, and like for myself, I can pick up areas of disturbance and get a diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment plan intuitively from looking at it that way. But I'm sure that everybody that's listening today will be able to relate to being sensitive to emotions and energy, because that's definitely the most common thing that we use to get intuitive messages. The other sense that we can use is the sense of smell. So, for example, you know, you might notice one of your loved ones' favorite cologne. Or for me, my biological father, who I hadn't had a relationship with, he showed up in my apartment one night, and he brought the smell of cigarette smoke because he was a smoker. And then he backed that up by showing a package of cigarettes rolled up in his t-shirt sleeve, because that's how he used to wear his cigarettes when he was a young guy. And that's what helped me to recognize that it was him. I'm sure there had to be other things too, because of course there's lots of smokers, but uh, that's all that I recollect at that time. That's what got my attention. Yet I instantly knew that it was him. So back then I was really in the very beginning stages, so I didn't know much more about than that. The other sense that we use, and I don't think this one's as common, it's the sense of taste. So, for example, I might connect with someone's loved one in spirit, and I'll have the taste of a pipe in my mouth, and I will know then that their loved one smoked a pipe when they were alive. So you can use all those senses. And really, the more practice you get, the more developed they will be, and you'll find that you'll start noticing senses that you hadn't noticed in the past. It's just a matter of just sort of fine tuning and learn how to focus. And I really think that the more you get messages a certain way, the more aware you'll be of other messages, because you start to realize just sort of, I don't know, where it comes from and where you might notice it. So it just makes it a little easier for you. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is I'm kind of stuck here. I'm thinking, gee, I should quickly check and see if there's any questions. So just let me put my glasses on and check that, okay? Okay. Yeah, one comment. I don't see anything. No, okay, for now. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is how you can become more able to receive intuitive messages. And this always makes me think of a time that I was meditating many years ago, and all of my spirit guides showed up all at once. And it was like this photo where the short ones were in the front and the tall ones were in the back. And when I saw them all there at once, I said, whoa, this must be really important. And I just knew instantly. I said, you've got a message for me about the book that I'm writing, don't you? And at that time, I was writing Messages of Hope and Healing. And they said yes. And I heard them say, build in periods of calm so messages can get through to you. And I said, you want me to highlight that and bold it and center it, put it in my book, don't you? And they said, yes, but we also want you to share it with as many people as possible. Like, I think really the most important thing is that we build in activities or periods of calm. And you can have an activity that is actually fairly busy, but you're able to be quiet and focused. Like we actually receive messages when we're cooking, walking, hiking, and you know, people receive messages when they're repairing a car. The good old granddad might come over there and say, gee, check the distributor cap. And although the person might not realize that that's what happened, they'll check the distributor cap. They just think it's their own thought. So anytime you can get yourself into a quiet, focused state, you're much more receptive to messages. And of course, the most important thing is meditation. And I know a lot of people tell me that they're not able to still their mind, or else they feel like they've fallen asleep, so meditation doesn't work for them. But if you can just even, you know, build in 10 to 15 minutes in a day, you'll find that you develop your intuition much more quickly that way. And the other thing you'll notice is that you can sleep much better at night, because your spirit guides and your loved ones in spirit, they'll come to you in the middle of the night when they know that you're more receptive to messages, and they'll sort of disturb your sleep, because we're more able to pick up messages just in that state where we're just dozing off, or in that state where we're first waking up. And I know if I'm meditating for several days, my guides start coming at 4 o'clock in the morning every night. They think that's an ideal time. And of course, when I wake at 4, I know right away there's a message. But anyway, if you've got that happening, just try to build in some periods of calm so they can get their messages to you during the day instead of disturbing your sleep. And then you can ask them to help you have a restful night's sleep. The other thing that you can use to help you get messages is automatic writing or journaling. If you can sit out there in the field or outdoors or somewhere quiet in your home and just write, and just try to give it as little thought as possible, and just sort of let the pen go. Afterwards, when you read it, you'll be quite astounded at the messages you get. And when you do that, it's really important not to think about grammar or spelling or punctuation. You just want to let yourself write with as little thought as possible. And you'll find that, like, some of your spirit guides, they give you messages that are just like little short phrases, kind of abrupt. So don't doubt that. Just because it's not a complete sentence doesn't mean it's not a message. And some of your spirit guides or loved ones of spirit be kind of poetic. So it'll be something about vocabulary that they use that makes you really know that it wasn't you and it was a message. But maybe give that a try, because I found that in my classes, that's one of the things that really works for a lot of the people, and they never dreamed it because they'd never tried it. So the other thing I want to talk about is how to ensure that messages you receive are accurate. There's nothing more important than being grounded. You have to be grounded in order for your emotions, your ego not to interfere. If you're really excited about something and really invested in the answer, then you probably have to work extra hard to be grounded. There's certainly a lot of ways to ground yourself, and I guess one of the quick methods that I teach people is I just tell them to think about the crown and draw their spirit and energy completely in through the crown and all the way into their body. And then if you're sitting, you just sort of wiggle your butt in the chair until you can feel yourself sitting completely in the seat of your chair. And that just sort of tugs the last bit of that spirit and energy back into your body. Or if you're standing, just really think about stamping your feet on the floor, or just really being aware of your feet on the floor or the ground. And that will help bring that spirit and energy all the way in too. The other thing that you can do to make sure that messages are accurate is using a pendulum. And I always recommend that you don't use a pendulum to get the answer, because you really want to develop your intuition so that you won't need a pendulum. So the best thing to do is to check out that answer, and when you think you've got it, then use your pendulum to validate the answer that you got. And there again, you have to be grounded. So important. It's also important that you're hydrated. And if you're not sure how to use a pendulum, you can just pick anything up. It can be a keychain, it can be your necklace, it can be a chain that doesn't have anything hanging on it. I remember years ago I used what's the the plumb line they use for the chalk line. I used that when I didn't have a pendulum. And so you just hold it and you ask the pendulum to show you what yes is, and it'll move in a certain way. For example, a lot of them will go in a clockwise direction, and then ask it to show you what no is. And most pendulums will go in a counterclockwise direction, but just check, because your pendulum might have a different way. And if it just goes back and forth, that typically means that you're not supposed to get the answer, or that however you worded it, the answer is unclear. So anyway, you can experiment with pendulum if you've never done that before. But like I said, try not to depend on the pendulum. Instead, get the answer intuitively. Use the pendulum to validate the answer you get, and that way your intuition will become much more confident about it. Because confidence is absolutely essential when it comes to using your intuition. If you're not confident about it, you're not going to take it seriously, and so it's really not going to work for you. So you want to have as many opportunities as possible to try to get intuitive answers, and then to get validation, so that you can become more confident and realize just how well you do that. Because of course you have to trust it. If you don't trust it, you're not going to follow it. So I think someone might have put a question up here, so just let me check. Okay. Oh, one of the people just wrote, Lee wrote, I just felt a brush of a light touch on my forehead. Excellent. That's very cool. So when something like that happens, just relax and trust the first impression that comes to you. Now, sometimes depression will just be a feeling. And remember, I told you a lot of people are clairsentient and they're sensitive to emotions and energy and feelings. And so, for example, you might just often feel this reassurance or encouragement. And typically, if a message comes to you at a time that you're worried about something particular, when you get that impression of reassurance, that's just reassuring you that that thing that you're worried about is going to be okay. So go ahead and trust that. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. Marianne wants to know. She said, sometimes when I'm sitting on the couch or in church, I'll feel a hand on my cheek, on the top of my head, and it's always on the left side. At other times when I'm driving or just reading, I'll feel a hand on the right side. And my question is, if the feeling is someone on the left, is that a female? And if it's on the right side, is it male? Which side you feel a spirit on doesn't indicate whether or not the spirit is male or female. Some spirits will repeatedly come to you in the same way or present in the same place, just to help you to identify them. But of course, you'd have to know how they are, who they are. One of the times they come to realize that that's how they like to come. And one of the examples I'd give to that is my sister knows that if she hears her ears ringing on one side, it's our dad who's passed on. If she hears it on the other side, it's our mom who's passed on. So you can check for that because you might have spirits who will help you out in that way, just to help to clarify who they are. Okay, just check and see what else we have here. I have someone ask me whether or not I have a message for from their loved ones in spirit, and I'm actually not doing that today. Instead, I'm just talking about how you receive messages. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to address that question. Does anybody else have any other questions that they wanted to ask that relate to 6 ways that we receive intuitive messages? If you do, if you just pop them up there, that'd be great. Got lots of people joining in here. So, you know, what I did want to say to you is that your spirit guides and your loved ones in spirit and your higher self know absolutely everything from the past, present, and future for yourself and for everybody else. But they also are aware of your life lessons. And although they'll help to make life go more smoothly for you when you ask for their help, and they'll even offer help without you asking, they won't do anything to interfere with your life lessons. I have people that sometimes think because I have such a close relationship with my spirit guides that my life is really easy and nice and smooth. Not so. And I remember way back when, many years ago, when I had this event, everything just was a schmoz, right down to finding the place, to getting there on time, to people not showing up, that it was just a disaster. And when I left the event, I went out to my car and I was just absolutely beside myself. And my spirit guides told me that it's not their job to make everything go smoothly. And it actually turned out that the reason everything went so poorly is because they wanted me to start teaching people to develop their intuition and to help them connect with spirit guides and loved ones in spirit and their higher self. Instead of doing the event I was doing that particular day, which was just helping people to increase the abundance in their life. And I just had sort of been avoiding that. I didn't think I was ready for it. I didn't think people were ready for it. But they made it very clear to me that I was wasting my time with the event that I had scheduled for that day. So I finally stuck my neck out and started teaching classes around communicating with spirit guides, loved ones in spirit, and higher self. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, I got a question here from Kim. She said, sometimes I get a tickle on my nose. Is that one of my guides? It's actually one of your loved ones in spirit, and it's a female spirit on your mother's side. I think it's your maternal grandmother. That's my impression anyway. Anybody else have a question you wanted to ask? I imagine the person that felt the brush of the light touching their forehead wouldn't mind knowing who it was too. That's Lee. That was a male spirit that did that. And I don't know whether or not your father's passed on, but I really feel like it's a male loved one in spirit. So, yeah, I hadn't really planned on doing that kind of thing today. Didn't even occur to me that I'd be using my intuition. So, anyway, I don't really have much else that I was going to address. So unless someone wants to pop up another question here, I'll be wrapping it up for the evening. I don't have any idea what time it is either, but give you 1 second here to put up any questions if somebody has any. No, I guess not. Well, I sure thank you all for tuning in this evening. It was great to have you all on board. Next time I'll be doing my event on Tuesday, June 12th at 6 o'clock p.m. And the topic will be asking for signs to validate intuition. So I hope that's something that you'll find helpful. Someone says thank you. Thank you to all of you. Good night, everybody.